All right, welcome back. We're gonna continue on our unit 1, still on the first learning target of constructing precise definitions and verbalizing and writing communication using them. We're also going to kind of get into the second learning target as well. So I'll go ahead and share my notebook with you. Okay, and we took some previous notes here we ended on page 3. So starting on page 4, okay, on page 4 here, we had that card sort from the last lesson that you did where you kind of moved and rearranged and matched up certain parts of points, lines, planes, rays, all that kind of stuff. So I want you to copy that in your notebook because that's some really basic information that's super important. So, excuse me. So I've kind of drawn a diagram. I've got 6 sections going this way and 4 going down. And you're just going to start here with the name. So like I put point up here. So you may do line segment, ray, all those at the top. Then we've got the long definition next. And then we've got the illustration. So maybe a picture and then the notation of what that is. So it doesn't really matter which goes where. Just make sure that they're all the same across. Okay. So our notes for today, you can push pause if you want to fill that out. That's fine. So our notes for today are going to start on page 5. Hopefully you've gone quite a ways in numbering your pages. So we're going to start on page 5. And for today, I'm actually going to use some pins to help kind of organize it. And some of it's kind of going to be some small writing or some pictures that we're going to draw. Okay. So we'll just title this page types of points, lines, and planes. Specifically, we're going to talk about lines and planes in this. So there'll be a lot of writing and quite a bit of drawing. So if you need to kind of pause the video and copy my drawing, by all means, go ahead and make that happen. Okay, so let's start with lines. So we're going to say lines can be. Okay, and we're going to have like 4 sections here. I'm not going to split it up right now, but we'll have 4 little sections and I'll switch to a pin here. So lines, if you have 2 lines, they can be parallel. Okay, so that's the first one. So lines can be parallel. Lines can be perpendicular. Lines can be intersecting. And the last one you probably have never really talked about, but it's something that needs to be addressed, is skew lines. Okay, so now I'll kind of draw some lines down here, just giving us a little bit of division for our pictures and notes. All right, let's put some definitions of what makes lines each one of these. Okay, so let's go with parallel. So in order for lines to be parallel, 3 things will happen. Okay, number 1, they must be on the same plane. Okay, lines that are not on the same plane cannot be parallel. Okay, so if you have a line on your computer screen and a line on your notebook right now, those two cannot be parallel at all. They both have to be on the same thing. Like these two lines are both on your screen right now. So they are on the same plane, therefore they can be parallel. The second part here, which is also important, is that they will be the same distance apart. Okay, so you got two lines on the same plane that are always the same distance apart. And that is really what defines parallel lines. There's a byproduct, I call it a byproduct of parallel lines, and that is they will never cross. We don't use that as a definition, and you'll find out here in just a little bit why, but we don't use that as a definition. Instead, we use that they are the same distance apart. So I call never cross a byproduct because you're right, they don't ever cross, but we can't use that to define it. Okay, and let's just draw a little picture here. Let's say we've got this line right here. Remember, lines must have arrows on each end. We're going to call that line L. Lines have a lowercase cursive letter. So there's one line, and we're going to draw it parallel to this line that we will call M. Okay, just so you know, a lowercase cursive M actually has three little humps on it. Now, we have notation for parallel lines. Like if I look at these two lines right now, I have no idea if they're parallel or not. They may look parallel, but soon in geometry, you're going to figure out real quick that we can't just go off of looks of things. So even though they may look parallel, they may look like they're on the same plane, they may look like they're the same distance apart, I don't necessarily know that they're parallel. How will I know if two lines are parallel? There will be small triangles filled in, or possibly arrows on the line, or line segment or array or whatever, that will say that it is parallel. And you can add more. So like if these two are parallel and then you have two other parallel lines, you could add double triangles or triple or something like that. You could just keep adding for all the parallel lines that you had in your diagram. Okay, so that's parallel lines. Lines can be perpendicular. So in order for lines to be perpendicular, they also must be on the same plane. And perpendicular lines will cross at a 90-degree angle, at a right angle. Okay, so that's it. So let's look at a picture here. So let's say we've got this line here, and I'm just going to use L for that line, and M, we'll just use L and M for all of them. And it crosses at a 90-degree angle. So this is M. Okay, now your notebook here that we've got is a bunch of perpendicular and parallel lines, okay? Each one of these angles is 90 degrees. A perfect corner, a perfect right angle is 90 degrees. Now, by looking at this, I can't tell that it's 90 degrees just because it looks 90 degrees. We have a symbol for 90 degrees, and that is a little box there, okay? So that is 90 degrees. If that little box is there, now we can call those lines perpendicular. Okay, so line L is now perpendicular to line M. Okay, intersecting lines. Again, intersecting lines will be on the same plane. And they will cross. At some point, those lines will cross. Okay, so let's look at a picture. So I've got this line L, and it's going to cross here with line M. Okay, they cross. There's no right angle. There's no triangles to denote parallel. They're just crossing, intersecting at some point. Doesn't matter where. Okay, and the last one is skew lines. Now, these three things had something very common together, and that is that they were on the same plane. So skew lines are actually on different planes. Okay, they are on different planes, and they never cross or never intersect. Now, these are a little more difficult to draw, okay? So, because we have to draw two different planes. So we need to draw two planes with two lines that never intersect. Okay, so I'm going to draw a plane here. And on that plane, we're going to put line L. And then I'm going to come over here and draw another plane. And I'm going to put line M. Okay, now these can be kind of hard to visualize. So let's take a look here. Just take a look around the room that you are in, okay? So if we look at the room you're in right now, and let's see here. Let me stop my screen share, and I'll just use my camera here so that you can kind of see what we're talking about. So I'm in my room here, and if we take a look at this line right here, that line, the corner, the edge. And then if I were to look at the edge on the ground, I don't know if you can see it, but the edge on the ground, okay? Those two are on the same plane and they're parallel. They're always the same distance apart. If not, the ceiling would go like down, but the floor would be straight. They would intersect, okay? We can also look at the ceiling. So like this line, oh, this is hard to do. This line right here, and is there a line over here? This line over here, they're parallel, okay? They're on the same plane, which is the ceiling, and they are the same distance apart. If they weren't the same distance apart, then the tiles wouldn't fit right, okay? Now, if we look at this line right here on the ceiling tile, and this line right there, they are perpendicular. They meet at this point right here, which is 90 degrees. Now, I know there's not triangles on the ceiling or squares or anything like that, but they are 90 degrees. If we want to look at skew lines, okay, if we look at skew lines, let's just take this light right here, okay, that's nice and bright. That light right there is a line, okay? That is on the ceiling plane. And then if we look at this line right here in the corner, okay, it is on a different plane. It's not on the ceiling. It goes through the ceiling, but it's not on the ceiling. So these two lines are skew. They will never intersect, but they're not on the same plane, okay? So that's what it means to be skew lines. You're on two completely different planes. All right, let's get back to the notebook. And that is what lines could be. That includes line segments could be all those, or rays could also be those as well. So planes. Planes can be we have very similar stuff with planes. So planes can be parallel. Planes can be perpendicular. And planes can be intersecting. The only thing we don't have are skew planes, okay? Because you can't, I mean, we could have kind of a skew plane, but it's going to have to be like in a different dimension type deal. And that's too advanced for us. We're not going to really look into other dimensions. All right. So let's look at definitions. For planes to be parallel, they must be the same distance apart. Okay? They will be the same distance apart. And more than likely, you'll have perpendicular or parallel lines on them as well. So we have a plane here. And I had you get the graphing book, the graphing notebook, so that we can use some of the lines and points on it to help us draw. So we'll label that with a cursive R. And then this one's going to be parallel to it. And we will call this one P. Okay, if you wanted, you could put little triangles down there to note parallel. Later on, we'll go over what the symbol notation for parallel is. Okay, so perpendicular, same as perpendicular lines, and that is that they cross at 90 degrees. Okay, now this one is tricky to draw. It is very, very tricky. Okay, so I'm going to kind of try to teach you a little shortcut. And we are going to kind of skip down a few lines, and we're going to draw perpendicular lines. So we'll start right here. There's that line. I'm not going to put arrows on it because they're planes, and planes don't have arrows. And then I'm going to draw this perpendicular line. And those two are perpendicular. Now, my plane has to be kind of slanted on the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here, and I'm going to slant it. Now, whatever that slant was, I'm going to do the same down here. See how I kind of stopped halfway in between those two lines, and I kind of stopped halfway there? And then you will connect. So there's one plane. Okay. Now, this same angle you had here and here needs to be the same angle here. Okay. Which is the tricky part. Okay. You can kind of see we went up 1.5 over 3. So if I go up 1.5 over 1, 2, 3, it's kind of in there. Okay. So up 1.5 over 1, 2, 3. There. Okay. And the other thing is I drew that dotted because it's behind another plane. Yeah, this should be dotted here, but it's not. So we'll call this plane R and plane P. So those two are perpendicular. Tricky to draw, yeah. And they actually intersect. Make a different color here. These two planes intersect right here at a line. Okay, they intersect. Two planes will intersect at a line. Okay, and at this case, they are exactly 90 degrees. And we have intersecting planes, which are similar. It's just at so cross at non-90 degrees. Okay, so they are going to intersect at some non-90 degree angle. Again, let's draw those out. Little tricky. Okay, so let's just draw two lines I'll show you a different way to draw it. Okay, so let's just draw a plane. So I'm going to have this plane here. There's a plane. Now I have to have another plane that intersects that. So there's two directions you can kind of draw this. Okay, you can draw them intersecting this way or intersecting this way. I'm just going to intersect this way. So I'm going to draw some segment here, just like, well, let's just draw it like this. Okay, those two lines intersect. Then I'm going to draw straight down. Straight down. And then I've got to have the same slope down here, okay? And then that's going to dot and connect. All right? Doesn't have to be perfect. I know it's difficult. And then there's your intersection. Again, they are intersecting at a line. So there's R and there's P. All right. So that's what kind of planes and lines we can have. We have intersections. Okay, so you've got some types of intersections. So we have lines. And then we have planes. Lines can intersect. Ooh, let me draw this. So lines intersect to create a single point. So lines intersect to create a point. Okay, so if we have, let's say, line L, and it intersects with line M, you have this newly created point right here, and we call that the point of intersection. Okay, that is our point of intersection. Now, two planes, and we've already talked about this, two planes can intersect to form a line. So planes intersect to form or create a line. All right, so let's draw a plane intersecting. Again, just maybe we'll do it a little different this time. Okay, plane there and there. Okay, there's one plane. Let's draw the other one right here. So we'll kind of go up like this. This one will go across like this. Okay, so we got two planes, R and P, and they intersect right there. Okay, and this is known as the line of intersection. Okay, so you got points of intersection, you got lines of intersection. Let's turn to page 6. And this is continued notes. I got two other things that we want to talk about here. So continued notes. And we're going to talk about collinear and coplanar. So we'll first start with collinear. Collinear means to be on the same line. Okay, so co comes from like a co-president, a co-founder, all that. It's joined together. Okay, two things as one. So co, and then linear is line. So on the same line, okay, or together on a line, collinear. So I'm gonna draw kind of a crazy little picture here, and we'll just answer some questions or fill some stuff out. All right, so we have that line, we have this line, we'll have another line up here, have a line down here, and we'll do a line right there. Okay, and I'm gonna label the points. I'm not gonna label the actual lines with cursive letters, because remember, we can label a line with just 2 letters. And a point here has to be labeled with a capital letter. R, S, and T. Okay, so now let's just name some collinear points. So collinear points. Now, to be collinear points, you're going to want more than 2, because between any 2 points, I can draw a line. Now, obviously, like points U and S are not collinear, but we'll just label some groups here. So let's look at P. So going along a line here, we've got P, Q, and R are collinear. They are all on this line right here. Let's do this line. So we've got points V, Q, and S are all collinear because they all lie on this line. And let's do one more group. We got T, S, and R. T, S, and R are all collinear. Okay. So let's just do a couple non-collinear. We'll do that over here. So non-collinear. So collinear points over there, non-collinear here. So 3 or more, not on the same line. So we could say U, S, and Q. So U, S, and Q are non-collinear. There's not a line, not a single line going through all 3 of them together. How about T, S, and Q? T and S are on the same line, but Q is not on the same line. Okay, so those are just some collinear. There's other groups of collinear and non-collinear on that picture. The next thing and the last thing we're going to look at is coplanar. Okay, to be coplanar means to be on the same plane. Okay, so if you're on the same plane, you are coplanar. Let's draw a picture. Take your time drawing it. It's okay. There's no rush. Okay, so we got our planes there. We'll label this R and P. Let's go ahead and put some points on this plane, or on these planes. So we're gonna start with C, B, and they actually, sometimes they'll draw this intersection here. Maybe it'll be dotted, maybe it won't be. Sometimes they won't draw it. It just depends on the author. So D, A, F, H, I, G, and E. Okay, and it can get a little tricky to tell which one's on where, but we tried to make it as obvious as possible. Like G obviously is not on this plane, okay? E is not on the plane, but if I put E right here, it'd be hard to tell if it was just on P, if it was just on R, or if it was on both, okay? So we try to make it as obvious as possible. So let's look at some coplanar points. Okay, let's just label 3 of them. So coplanar could be C, D, and E. So C, D, and E, they are all on plane P. F, A, D, F, A, D. So F, A, D are all on the same plane. And A and D, I did that one because A and D are actually on both planes, okay, vertical and horizontal, but then F is only on plane R, okay? And then the last coplanar, let's just say B, D, A. And we don't really know what plane that they are on because they're actually on the intersection, so they're on both. So non-coplanar. Okay, so non-coplanar points. Let's say F, H, E. Those are non-coplanar. A group of non-coplanar. Let's do B, D, I. Now B and D are on the same planes, but when you throw I into the group, they are not as a group coplanar. Okay, so that is some more definitions for you. Okay, you've got that Google Doc sheet that you could be adding to or double checking as we're moving through some of these with all of our definitions. Okay, so make sure you got those notes down and go ahead and work the rest of the way through the module.